Welcome to the Today's Soapbox podcast. This episode accompanies the article How to Combat the War on Autism, originally published September 29th, 2025. I will be reading the article as written in the web version with minor adjustments for the audio format. This podcast is sponsored by the Today's Soapbox website, which you can access at todays-soapbox.com. If you want to support the work I'm doing there to promote independent journalism, you can find details on the website on how to support with your engagement and money if you are willing. My name is S, and I am the main writer for today's Soapbox. Content warning: this article contains mentions of suicide and may be distressing. If you need help, call or text 988 or go to 988lifeline.org to contact the Suicide and Crisis Hotline. On September 22, 2025, U.S. President Donald Trump and Secretary of Health and Human Services Robert F. Kennedy Jr. announced plans to confront the so-called autism epidemic. The new plans include proposed plans for treatment and addressing alleged increased risk factors. Kennedy said, quote, "Today we are taking bold action, opening the door to the first FDA-recognized autism treatment pathway, informing doctors and families about potential risks, and investing in groundbreaking research. We will follow the science, restore trust, and deliver hope to millions of American families." End quote. As a proposed plan for treatment, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, or FDA, will authorize treatment for autism spectrum disorder, ASD, symptoms with leucovorin. In a news release from the FDA, they state that leucovorin calcium tablets are approved to treat developmental delays for a specific subgroup of autistic children with cerebral folate deficiency, or CFD. The other announced plan is for the FDA to issue a warning to physicians and change the safety label for acetaminophen, which is the active ingredient in Tylenol. The HHS website says this is a response to, quote, "studies that suggest a potential association between acetaminophen use during pregnancy and adverse neurodevelopmental outcomes," end quote. The world's reaction. In a reaction to the announcement, the newspaper Good published this statement to their Instagram account, accompanied by slides reposting the statements of journalists, influencers, and the American Psychological Association, or APA. Quote, "Autistic people deserve better than stigma and misinformation. Now is an especially good time to listen to autistic voices, honor their experiences, and embrace neurodivergence with respect and inclusion." End quote. The announcement from the president even reached the World Health Organization, a United Nations agency, who released a statement of their own. Quote, "The World Health Organization, WHO, emphasizes that there is currently no conclusive scientific evidence confirming a possible link between autism and use of acetaminophen, also known as paracetamol, during pregnancy." End quote. Some news organizations were quick to highlight the inaccuracy of the claims made. NBC News released an article titled, "With RFK Jr. behind him, Trump pushes unproven link between Tylenol and autism." And NPR's health news division, SHOTS, released their coverage titled, "Trump blames Tylenol for autism, science doesn't back him up." More conservative organizations were less inclined to openly challenge the HHS's conclusions. Fox News, a conservative news outlet that traditionally aligns more with President Trump, titled their article, "Trump ties autism to widely used over-the-counter drug." InfoWars, Alex Jones's far-right news service, titled their article, "HHS and CDC in open rebellion against RFK Jr. after Trump's historic autism press conference that attacked Big Pharma's precious vaccines / Tylenol." Danny Bowman, an autism advocate who appeared on the popular Netflix reality show Love on the Spectrum, spoke up on her social media after Secretary Kennedy and President Trump's comments, saying, quote, "Autism isn't a disease to fix. It's a difference that deserves support." End quote. Why are these claims harmful? Acetaminophen is used to treat pain and temporarily reduce fevers. It elevates the pain threshold and helps release excess heat. The National Health Service, or NHS, explains that ibuprofen, another pain reliever, is not safe to take during pregnancy, and that paracetamol, known as acetaminophen in the U.S., is the best painkiller to take during pregnancy. Creating fear around the primary recommended pain relief for pregnant people discourages them from seeking pain or fever relief while expecting. Untreated pain and fever in pregnancy is dangerous to both the fetus and the mother. Fevers in the first trimester, if left untreated, increases the likelihood of miscarriage and other issues such as premature birth. A safety announcement from the FDA states, quote, severe and persistent pain that is not effectively treated during pregnancy can result in depression, anxiety, and high blood pressure in the mother, end quote. Kennedy himself admitted during a hearing that he does not believe that people should be taking medical advice from him. If you are experiencing fever or pain during pregnancy, it is important to consult your doctor for their recommended course of action. Autism prevention and the elusive cure. Autism, or ASD, has not been found to be caused by one factor, but rather a combination of multiple genetic and environmental factors. Some cases of ASD have been linked to a specific genetic condition, but many have an unknown cause. The environmental factors listed by the National Institute of Environmental Health Sciences include advanced parental age at time of conception, prenatal exposure to air pollution or certain pesticides, maternal obesity, diabetes, immune system disorders, extreme prematurity or very low birth weight, and any birth difficulty leading to periods of oxygen deprivation to the baby's brain. The idea of a cure for autism is controversial among autistic individuals and their families. Dr. Kathleen Miller says, quote, there are two truths here. First, autism can be devastating, and second, autism is not a disease. These truths coexist in uncomfortable tension and may seem contradictory. It forces us to question the assumption that people with autism can't speak for themselves and to carefully balance the need for treatment with the respect for the person. End quote. One of the most prominent autism organizations is Autism Speaks. The organization has faced criticism from autistic people for their negative portrayal of autism and its effects on a child's quality of life, as well as their focus on finding a cure for autism. While the organization has attempted to shift their core mission based on these criticisms, autism advocates have continued to criticize their values and actions. Ending the stigma. Disability as a whole will affect every person at some point during their lifetime, whether they experience it themselves or one of their loved ones does. According to the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC, 1 in 4 adults have some type of disability. Autistic people often face stigma and bullying from neurotypical peers. Marina Saris writes for Spark, saying, quote, around the world, many societies view autism as a source of disappointment, annoyance, or shame. According to some researchers, this social stigma may keep families from seeking a diagnosis and services for their children, from participating fully in their communities, and from enjoying the same quality of life as their neighbors. End quote. There are many ways to contribute to the destigmatization of autism. One of the most obvious ones is to combat ableism. Ableism is discrimination against disabled people, whether that disability is visible or invisible, physical or mental, and acquired or congenital. One way to combat ableism is to avoid person-first language. Person-first language, PFL, puts the person before their disability. For example, person with autism versus autistic person, or person with a disability versus disabled person. The use of PFL is controversial in some disabled communities as it distances the individual from their disability like it is a bad thing. For some, their disability is a part of their identity and they do not want to be separated from it. User u/SAU19991 on Reddit writes, quote, I'm all for identity first language. When describing me, nobody would say that I'm a person who is a woman, or a person who is white, or a person who is American. No, they'd say that I'm a woman, I'm white, I'm American. We say it this way because these are aspects that cannot be separated from my identity. Likewise, my disabilities cannot be separated from my identity. To me, saying that I'm a person with a disability is an attempt to ignore and minimize my experiences. End quote. Disability and autism are not bad words. Their connotation as derogatory things to call someone comes from a history of negativity around the issue of disability rights. It is important to listen to disabled or autistic people on this issue and address them as they would like to be addressed. This includes avoiding euphemistic language to soften the blow of somebody being autistic. These can include terms like on the spectrum, neurospicy, differently abled, or even the term popularized on social media, acoustic. Others are entirely rude and inappropriate, such as calling someone slow or the infamous R slur. Words that are now considered ableist slurs were once used as medical diagnoses and led to harmful treatments such as institutionalization and lobotomies. The history of being used in a medical setting does not give a neurotypical or abled person an excuse to use them. The Autistic Self-Advocacy Network, ASAN, released a statement about functioning labels and how they are harmful to the autism community. Examples of functioning labels include high functioning versus low functioning, and severe autism versus mild autism. If you feel the need to classify different presentations of autism, consider exploring levels of support. If these seem overcomplicated, that's because they're supposed to be. Autism presents differently in every person and cannot be understood in broad brushstrokes that functioning labels provide. The term special needs is also controversial, as disabled people's needs are not special. Framing needs this way implies accommodations are an advantage, while they are simply receiving services to meet the same needs that everyone has. The way they go about meeting their own needs may be considered different, and that is because of an inaccessible environment. The National Center on Disability in Journalism, NCDJ, currently recommends avoiding the terms special needs and special education. Julia Metro wrote to X, quote, "As a disabled journalist forever waiting for disability services in K-12 to retire the name of their departments as special education so I don't have to refer to disabled kids' needs as special ever again." End quote. Neurodiverse people are at a higher risk of suicide and violence. They are also more likely to report suicidal ideation and mental distress. A study from Yale School of Medicine cited ableism as a barrier preventing disabled patients from receiving adequate mental health care. The social model of disability explains disability as the environment not being suited for the person, creating disabling barriers. The solution is then to make the society and environment more inclusive of individuals, placing the need to change on the environment instead of on the disabled individual. These disabling barriers are a result of an ableist society and inaccessibility, not the individual's disability. The other two models are the moral model and medical model. As explained by the APA, the moral model focuses on karmic consequences which are either a result of wrongdoing or an honor. These are seen in the media when disabilities are used to portray a character as evil or virtuous because of their disability. Examples include how ectrodactyly is portrayed in The Witches, intellectual disabilities and disabled veterans in Forrest Gump, and quadriplegia and euthanasia in Me Before You. The medical model emphasizes disability as an impairment. Through this lens, the only experts on disability are professionals with formalized training, not disabled people with lived experience. It also seeks to return the individual to a normal state, which is rooted in being neurotypical or perceived as traditionally able. Kennedy's plan for preventing cases of autism from occurring aligns with this interpretation of disability. These models stigmatize disability by treating it as something that is wrong with the individual on either a moral or physical level. The social model of disability is not as well known by people outside the disability community and can require challenging one's mindset surrounding their internalized biases and perception of disability. Many neurodiverse individuals consciously or unconsciously mask, which means that they try to appear neurotypical. To be able to pass in a neurotypical world, they may express themselves physically and verbally in a way that is not natural to them. This can lead to feeling insecure about their neurodiversity and fatigue, leading to burnout and distress. Neurodiversity is simply another way of experiencing and interacting with the world. Like any other identity, its adverse effects occur because of societal inequalities. Neurodiverse people are not thinking the wrong way because there is no right way. The expectation that there is a correct way to think and experience the world comes from a world designed exclusively for able-bodied and neurotypical people. RFK's history with autism. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., colloquially known as RFK, is not new to the discussion surrounding cures for autism. He has been a notable vaccine skeptic for many years following the study by Dr. Andrew Wakefield published in the medical journal The Lancet that linked autism to the MMR vaccine. The study was retracted by The Lancet 12 years later in 2010 due to it being incorrect and inconsistent with other studies that disproved this connection. When pressed during confirmation hearings, Kennedy would not say that vaccines do not cause autism. His other health policy ideas include removing restrictions on raw milk, removing fluoride from drinking water, and cracking down on harmful ingredients in processed foods. Earlier, in April of 2025, after assuming the office of HHS Secretary, Kennedy announced his intention to find the cure for autism by the end of September 2025. His announcement on September 22nd allowed him to meet his deadline a week early. Kennedy also has a history of making grandiose claims about autism, such as, quote, "Autism destroys families. More importantly, it destroys our greatest resource, which is our children. These are children who should not be suffering like this." End quote. He frames autism as a disease that children suffer with and by extension causes their families to suffer as well. While parenting a neurodiverse child in a world built for neurotypical people is undoubtedly difficult, the difficulty is due to insufficient resources and services, not an inherent quality of the child. Disabled voices and meeting needs. Disabled people deserve to be treated with respect just like everybody else. A way to respect them as individuals is to listen when they are speaking. The disability community is extremely diverse, so each disabled person may have a preference of how they want to be referred. The National Center on Disability and Journalism has produced a language guide for thoughtful language choices in English, Spanish, Italian, and Romanian. Another resource for advocacy is the Americans with Disabilities Act, or the ADA. The Civil Rights Division of the U.S. Department of Justice has published a disability rights law guide unpacking the ADA and other civil rights legislation protecting disabled people. Each person is unique and thus may request unique accommodations. Equality, as shown in the image in the article, is providing the same resources to every person, regardless of their suitability for the task. Equity is providing adequate and specific resources to help them meet the need, even if it is different from someone else's accommodation. An equity-focused approach helps give everyone a fair shot at success. When considering disability advocacy, it is important to listen to disabled voices. Seek out disabled creators or scholars who are speaking on important issues from a place of lived experience. One autistic creator who uses her platform to educate her audience about autism is Kaylin Partlow. She rose to fame from the show Love on the Spectrum aside Danny Bowman. Partlow's advocacy extends to speaking at events and on social media about neurodiversity on the whole, not just autism specifically. Parents, family, and friends of disabled people cannot speak about issues of disability rights in the same way as a disabled person themselves. This problem is particularly pervasive for the autism community. YouTuber Meg from the channel I'm Autistic Now What, who was diagnosed as autistic as an adult, has spoken on several occasions about parents of autistic people speaking on behalf of the autism community. She covers online trends or topics regarding parents of autistic children in addition to the disability advocacy and activism of parents. Perspectives from abled people in interabled relationships are worth discussing, but it's important to include disabled partners in the conversation as well. Cole and Charisma Sidnor from the channel Roll with Cole and Charisma on YouTube, and Shane and Hannah Burkaw from the channel Squirmy and Grubs on YouTube are both couples with one disabled partner who uses mobility aids and one able-bodied partner who does not. Both couples discuss marriage, dating, fertility, travel, and accessibility as interabled romantic partners. Because both partners are included in the content and advocacy, they are able to speak together on disabilities from lived experience and from a loved one's lived experience. Cole Sidnor created a series called Things I Wish I Knew Before I Broke My Neck that goes through the alphabet and discusses an aspect of his experience for each letter. Sarah Todd Hammer is a disabled author, speaker, and disability advocate. She tells the story of becoming disabled suddenly as a child and the resulting medical trauma due to her mistreatment by doctors. She also advocates for accessibility on college campuses by sharing her experience as a disabled student. She also reviews products and services that young adults use, such as makeup and skincare, fashion, technology, driving, and her favorite music. Hammer notably includes text with the words, "No advice, please," over every video she posts. She speaks with authority about her disability and considers unsolicited internet advice condescending and unhelpful. All of these creators are linked in the web version of this article. How to respond. The most important step for neurotypical people after this administration's announcement is to support disabled people. Follow disabled creators and reputable organizations focused on disability advocacy to learn from them, especially when misinformation is rampant surrounding related issues. Remember, their statements will not be infallible or indicative of the feelings of the entire community. However, the creators are informed by their lived experiences. Another important course of action is to support the First Amendment right to speak and write about these issues, especially if the conclusion is contradictory to the current administration. Creators and other advocates should not fear repercussions for speaking critically. Finally, examine your personal biases. Here are some example questions to consider. Do you consider disabled people to be less capable, credible, or authoritative when speaking about a subject? Do you speak to disabled people with the same tone of voice as you do everyone else, as opposed to a slower, more childish, or diminutive tone? Do you use disability-related language outside of appropriate contexts? This may include, but is not limited to, disclosing someone's disability to another person when it is not relevant, using disability as a joke or metaphor, such as, I'm so OCD, or that's so lame, etc., or calling someone disabled as an insult. Do you consider accommodations for accessibility to be unnecessary, extra, or inconvenient? I'd like to thank MVO for editing, and I would also like to thank the guest sensitivity readers on this article, M. Haverly and C. Stout. As one final note, I wanted to draw attention to the case of Jonathan Huang. He is a 21-year-old man from Arlington, Washington. He is autistic, and he has been missing since March 30th, and he was spotted on multiple home surveillance cameras around 11 p.m. on June 23rd in Kirkland, Washington, and he has not been seen since. So if you would like to know more about this case and help find Jonathan Huang, you can go to findjonathanhuang.com. That is FINDJONATHANHOANG.com. It's a great place to, if you're in the Puget Sound area, to be able to help a family and help put this into practical action and help support autistic individuals, whatever their needs may be. All right, thank you for listening, and I hope to see you in the next episode.